What's going on, sports bettors? I'm back after a brief break. After the NBA season, typically from June to July is when I recharge. I actually took a short vacation to Costa Rica. Pretty much just unplugged and spent 2 weeks in nature. It's super refreshing to do that, after literally betting and watching on sports, for the previous 270 plus consecutive days in a row. Mental health and sports betting, really important, and it doesn't get talked about enough. So taking breaks, especially from social media, which can be not only toxic, but also just, a bit taxing, is certainly important. So, that being said, I'm back. I am ready for the grind, the meat and potatoes of the season that honestly started a week ago with the NFL preseason. Um, and we'll run through NBA finals in June. So, yeah, it's a long 10 months ahead, but, this is what we live for, especially when all plays are going to be in full force in a short 2 months, which will be here before we know it. Not to mention that, NFL and college football are almost back, which I'm super excited about. But this video is about golf. So I guess we can quick recap, how golf has been going since I last uploaded a video. It's been a bit of a mixed bag lately. That being said, we did hit two outrights in a row at Jack's place with Victor Hovland 20-1 in his playoff over Denny McCarthy. That was exciting. And then the following week, we ended up hitting Sepp Straka at the end of the third round on a live bet at 65-1. That was just one of the biggest outright wagers that I've personally ever won, and it was awesome, to share that with all the followers on Twitter. A ton of people cashed out. So that was awesome. Since golf has then swung over to links, wasn't a great tournament at the Scottish nor the British Open. And the Wyndham and the FedEx weren't great. But that being said, this is where the cream absolutely rises to the top. In the BMW this week, and then obviously in the grand finale at East Lake next week, where we hit our outright of the year last year with Rory. So that's just a quick recap. Golf obviously is quite variant, especially when you're betting outrights. So you can lose, small a few weeks in a row, and then hit it big with an outright. That wipes out those losses and it sets you up, really for the season. So, that being said, let's hop right into the BMW. For this week, we can shoot over to the odds board. I'll use DraftKings just because I have it pulled up. Um, not a book that I typically bet at, but we'll just take a look here at the top guys. As has been the case virtually all season, the big three are at the top: Rory, Scotty, and Rahm. Followed by Cantlay, and then Xander, Victor, Fleetwood, Hatton, Morikawa, Homa, Spieth, Ricky, and then Cam Young. So for those who aren't familiar, the way how the FedEx playoffs work is the top 70 make it, and then it gradually narrows down the following 2 weeks. So this week, only the top 50 make it, and then depending on who scores what, it's just going to reshuffle, and then the top 30 will compete for the FedEx Championship next week at East Lake. So really, for guys who are at the top, it's not as meaningful. Scotty came out and said last week that, even if he wins these next two tournaments, it doesn't really do much for him because he's already in first and who's ever going to be in second is only going to be 2 strokes back. So Scotty, as much as I love him next week, spoiler alert, you know, he just doesn't really have the incentive this week, so I'm not going to be touching him. Not even top 10, where he's been virtually a, you know, top 10 machine, pretty much was all season long. Now, he missed it in 2 of the last 3 tournaments. Um, Rom did win here when they played at the same course back in 2020. But that being said, he's just not in great form. And, last week he finished close to last, just not a guy who is in good enough form at the moment, despite course history, to bet at this short of a number. But Rory, I do like a lot. So we'll jump over to the model to take a look at the statistical categories that I'm targeting this week, and B, who are the guys who actually model out well, given given these statistical profiles that we're highlighting. So, as you can see, number one in the rankings is Rory himself. So we'll quick run through sort of what the model is emphasizing this week. Strokes gained tee to green, driving distance, approach, greens and regulations gained, birdies are better gained, stroke gained par four, stroke gained par fours on 450 to 500, and then proximity of 175 to 200 and 200 plus, and then 3 putt avoidance. So essentially, this course is going to be very tough. When they played here back in 2020, I think -4 was good enough to get you into the playoff. Rom and DJ, that was the year that DJ made that bomb on 18 to get into the playoff. And then, actually, much to my chagrin, I was on DJ as an outright in that tournament. Rom ended up winning in the playoff, but as you can see, there weren't many guys under par. There's only 5 guys under par. It played very difficult. Might be playing a little bit easier this week with the weather. It's going to be very soft. But what that's going to do is it's going to make the approach easier, but it's also going to give the guys who have the better distance more of an advantage. Even though, it was sort of a mixed bag looking back really quick, at who had success back in 2020. Guys like Rom, DJ, Neiman, Finau, Kokrak back before he went to the Live. All those guys are uh, quite long hitters, and then you have more of plotters like Todd and Hughes and Harmon. So there's multiple ways to skin a cat here. You can. I mean, distance is definitely going to be an advantage, but if you're very accurate and a good approach player, that is another avenue that can lead to success as well. So, and that's why we're putting a lot of emphasis on strokes gained par fours, and strokes gained 450 to 500. All but one of the par fours fall within that yardage, and then the proximity. A lot of the par fours are a bit longer, and or the par fives rather. So the approaches in are going to be within that range. Uh, so the guys who have been having success with the long irons are going to have an advantage here. And then obviously 3 putt avoidance, you know, and birdies are better gained. You're going to have to score when you have the opportunity, but it's going to be equally as important, not to bogey. And it's going to be pretty difficult to hit greens, so there's going to be a lot of scrambling involved, and the players are going to have to avoid 3 putting. So typically I'll weight strokes gained putting, but in this particular tournament, it really hasn't been a putting contest at all. You know, so the three putt avoidance is a lot more predictive than really putting, because the putting is obviously the most variant category as it is. So Rory, I mean, Rory's been excellent. He's now has 8 straight top tens. There's really nothing that you can say about his game negatively as of late. I mean, if you look at this, in the top four in almost all of the most predictive categories outside of three putt avoidance, which is only a 5% distinguishment. So that's really the least of it. He's number one in driving distance, number four in approach, number one in greens in regulation gained, number one in birdie better gained, number one in strokes gained par four, number three in strokes gained par four, 450 to 500, which is obviously correlated. Number three in proximity from 200 plus. So Rory can absolutely win this week. Would not shock me in the least if that happens. Especially if he can continue to putt well. He had his putter slightly modified before, I believe it was the weekend last week, where they shaved an eighth of an inch off of putter. Which to us seems like nothing. But the Rory that really helped him with his putting. But at his number right now of plus 650, not that I would never bet a guy at that number, but in a field like this, that's just too short. So the way I'm going to attack Rory this week is take him to be the leader in the British and Ireland field. So that eliminates the majority of the field. Really, the only guys who he has to beat at the top of the odds board would be Hatton and Fleetwood. And that's still a plus money price. And then, I also do like him to finish in the top five. That pays around plus 150 as well. Outside of Rory just having a horrific putting performance, which I really don't see happening here. It's hard not to see him finishing in the top five, being right there in contention once again on Sunday. He hasn't been great at closing these tournaments out, but I think he'll be right there. So that's the way I'm approaching Rory. Then as far as guys who I think who can actually win, with it only being a 50-man field, it's my typical portfolio of picking 5 or 6 guys. Typically what I like to do is risk one total unit with every guy who would win, would pay out plus 8 units. But this week it's difficult to pick more than 1 to 3 guys. Then really, if you're picking a guy at the top of the odds board, you're stuck to one. So that's why I'm not taking Rory on the outright, but rather approaching him that way. But as you can see here, I'm going to sort this by my rank, 1 to 20. Scotty, as I touched on, he's number 2 in the model, but like I said, I love Scotty next week. He's so overdue for a win, and it just seems impossible to me that a guy who played this well all year is really not going to win a major, which he didn't, or win the FedEx. So I do think Scotty wins the FedEx next week, which will just be a cherry on top of really a historic season. But then that brings us to number 3 on my model, which is Victor Hovland, who is my first outright wager of the week. This course comp, the most similar course that they have played so far this year is Oak Hill, which was the site of the PGA Championship, where Victor Hovland contended and almost won. His best surface is bent grass, because his really only weakness now, even though he has improved quite a bit, is around the green with his chipping, and the course Bent grass helps to mitigate that, and it's also his best putting surface. He's actually number 8 in this field putting on bent grass. And, as you can see, he rates in the top 10 or just outside in every single predictive category, including number 2 in birdies or better gained, number 1 in strokes gained, par fours from 450 to 500, number 1 in proximity, 175 to 200, and then he's number 5 in proximity, 200 plus. So, Hovland is one of the best long iron players in this field. He's really just right behind Rory in that aspect. He's a slightly better putter, and off the tee, they're virtually similar. I mean, Rory is the longest in this field, but Hovland's still in the top 10. And Hovland, last week he lost 4 strokes on number 18 alone, and he still finished T13. He shot 2 over the opening round, and then he was a combined minus 11 over the weekend. So, when I see guys playing like that and scoring like that, I really have to look hard at them the following week. And, that's how I landed on Sepp Straka at the John Deere. He started off slow, and then, Friday, Saturday, no one played better than him. And then Sunday, he ran away with it. So in a tournament where, the winning score is probably going to be between -5 to -10, a guy who can score the ball well and give himself a lot of opportunities is going to be vital, because really, if you can have one round where you can get to -4, that'll be huge. And Hovland absolutely has shown time and time again that he's capable of doing that. So at 19 to 1 on Bookmaker, absolutely love Hovland's chances this week, and like him top 5 and top 10 as well at plus 300 and plus 150 respectively. And then for my final outright of the week, I'm going to the guy who's number 4 on the list, Lucas Glover, the guy who's won the past 2 weeks. And, I've already been criticized for this. Uh, you know, when I posted this elsewhere, people saying, how many people have won 3 tournaments in a row? It's a very short list. It's only one person, and it's Tiger Woods, and he's done it twice. Is Lucas Glover Tiger Woods-esque? No. But, I had a sin of omission last week where Glover was number 1 in the model, and I did bet him to finish top 30, but that was it. And, I just figured, this guy's 43 years old. He's going to have a letdown. It's extremely difficult to win back to back. He sort of did what he had to do in winning at the Wyndham, because if anyone watched the end of that round, it was one of the more emotional things that I've honestly seen in the sports world this year. But it was where, his daughter ran up to him sobbing. His son was saying, Dad, you did it. And he basically said, I wasn't playing well. I am too old to be playing this much golf, but, I need to be playing as much as I have been because I haven't been playing well. And, as a result, I've missed out on a lot of events in my children's lives. So, it was a very motivated Glover. And, you know, I got the sense that, this was a guy who was playing with a purpose even bigger than himself. He was playing for his family. And, there's certain things in sports that you can't quantify. There's no way to model this. There's no strokes gained family. But, you know, that's the psychological aspect of sports that I just love. And, it was, like I said, a complete sin of omission, and it drove me nuts that I didn't bet him to win last week. Now is this buyer's remorse? Maybe, but take a look at his stats. Outside of driving distance, which as I touched on in the beginning of this video, it's not like it's a necessity here. It certainly helps, but we've seen people in the past have plenty of success here, like Glover, like Todd, back in 2020, who are far from long drivers. If you're accurate, which Glover is, if you're a great approach player, which honestly, no one's been better than Glover. He's ranked number 2 here because this is showing the past 24 rounds. But if I reduced it down to the last 12 rounds, or last 8 rounds, or last 4 rounds, Glover is number 1 in approach. And, Glover's bugaboo for the longest time has been his putting. But he went to that long putter, and now he calls that a weapon. And it certainly has been. And, I ask, why not Glover? Outside of the fact that, only the best player of all time, in my opinion, Tiger Eldrick Woods, has won 3 times in a row. Why else can't Glover win this week? If, his name was Scotty Scheffler or Rory McIlroy or even John Rahm, and he won the last 2 weeks and he's playing as well as he has, and, these stats, were next to their name, people wouldn't blink an eye, and they would be betting him, saying, he can set history this week. So, Glover, he models out so well. And, despite the fact that, winning last week really did set him up for next year, he's going to finish, in the top 5 or top 10 at worst, in the FedEx standings this year, which is going to really allow him to set his schedule next year. It's going to allow him to play in all of the big money designated events. So, mission accomplished for him, with what he wanted to do. So, that's going to allow him to spend more time with his family. But what I really like is, they asked Glover, have you ever thought about the Ryder Cup? And, I'm going to throw it up here really quick.
And I know this is happened kind of fast, but in the last, 5 starts, has the Ryder Cup gotten on your mind at all?
About 15 minutes ago.
What'd you think?
I think I've never made it, and I want to.
As it stands now, he's most likely on the outside looking in. One sports book put up odds on, will the players make the Ryder Cup? And, right now, Glover is a 3-1 underdog to make the team, despite winning back-to-back weeks, despite being number 4 in the FedEx Cup standings. I think a strong finish to finish out the FedEx Cup would go a long, long way to getting him on the team. What she has said has always been a career aspiration. And honestly, this is probably his last shot because, he's said that, golf is such a fickle game that when you play well, you have to take advantage of it. You have to make the most of it. And, the guy is 43 years old. So, yeah, like it's just funny. The guy has the biggest dad bod. Anyone who watched last week, saw the swamp ass that he was, criticized for. But I love Glover, man. The guy doesn't give a fuck. He's like an old school OG, and he's just one of those like Southern grinders, man. And this guy, like when I watch that video of him about the Ryder Cup, I just say, God damn, I got to bet this guy again this week. And honestly, I mean, he's 55-1 on Bet Online. And, that's just the last thing that I'm going to say, because this video ran on way too goddamn long. So I apologize. For anyone who's falling asleep listening to this. But yeah, like the offshores, Bet Online, and Bookmaker, their odds are infinitely better than any U.S. books. Like Glover's like 25-1 to 35-1, like across FanDuel, Bet Rivers, etc. And he's 55-1. on Bet Online. Granted, he is like 35-1 on Bookmaker. But if you don't have offshore books and you're only betting, um, on the American books, you're certainly not getting the best of the number, which in golf is obviously super important, especially when the discrepancy is literally like 20 cents, even 30 cents in some books for Glover. So, I mean, do I think Glover wins again? Probably not. Only one guy's ever done it. But the odds are extremely fair, especially at 55-1. Given the fact that, I make the fair odds closer to 30-1. So, other guys I was looking at, Ricky Fowler, Terrell Hatton, Tommy Fleetwood. But as you can see, Glover rates out higher than all of them, and his number is far better. So when it comes to, putting together that portfolio that pays roughly 8-1, Glover was the easy choice. So those are my three outrights for the week. Uh, Victor Hovland, Lucas Glover, oh yeah, and then Max Homa. So Homa, I'm not going to get into it because this video already ran on way too long. But Homa also fits a lot that I look at. Even though on this particular model, I think he ranks in like 25th. There's just certain aspects about his game and this course that correlate to some other courses where he has won. TPC Potomac being the main one earlier in the year. So Homa, he's been close, and last week he played really well. And I think, he can be right there as well. So those are my three picks this week. I'm going to be having, just round by round matchups as well. So if you ever are interested in getting the full card, feel free to subscribe, to my VIP service. The links in the description below. Especially with NFL kicking off, and then college hoops and NBA right around the corner. There's a tremendous amount of value as long as you're a relatively large unit size better, or not just just a small better, in getting access to all my picks real time, as I place them. So I'm going to be doing a lot of free content as well, but the beauty of subscribing to the service is you just get access to the Telegram group, and then as I post or as I bet, the bets that I place to earn a living, I post them in the Telegram real time. So if that's something that interests you, feel free to go to the website, check it out. If you ever have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments, or you can go on the website and there's a chat feature, and then my assistant can answer any questions you may have. All right, guys. Well, good luck this week, and we'll be back next week for the grand finale at Eastlake. And now that I'm back in the swing of things, making content, we're going to be releasing 3 videos a week. The plan is to do 2 actionable videos, meaning be discussing. It's going to be a lot of NFL coming up, or college football, and then 1 evergreen video as well. So I'm going to put up on Twitter. If you're not following me there, go over there at Steve P. Betts. Me putting up some polls of, just video topics that may be of interest. I have a long laundry list of topics that I want to get into, for the evergreen part of this channel. But I'll just start running them off, based on what's ever of most interest to you guys. So keep an eye out for that. Best of luck with the tournament this week, and let's go Victor. If I had to pick one, Victor would be my pick. I think he gets it done. All right, guys. Peace out.